I was emailed Harold Marin and discussing feedback about what can we do, can we do something to make fireworks restrictions more significant than the state offers. And then the other side is, what about the people who are just flat out altogether blowing them off whenever they want? I think last year we were a lot more sensitive and aware to it because it was the new law. This year I honestly haven't heard from many people, but I hear it and hear it and hear it. Like a week ago Sunday, I went down to Franklin Drive wasn't trying to play cop, but trying to find who was using it. Of course, by the time I get there, I couldn't see it or hear it. There are communities, and they forwarded some information to me that allows municipalities, and I would imagine they allow us to tighten up the restriction beyond what the state has put out there. I'm not in a position tonight to, I haven't explored what other townships are doing yet, and if they don't, you absolutely can take
Alright,
our
so this was something that was, again, I didn't get to hear one firework this year, just saying, nothing. But my wife told me about everything, and I did research the fire laws.
I forgot.
Fireworks. Yeah. So if you look at what the state has done, it is, you're allowed to shoot off fireworks between 4 and 11 p.m. You are allowed to do it on the 3rd, like say for 4th of July, you're allowed to do it the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You're also allowed to do it the weekend before and the weekend after. You're also supposed to be 100 feet from any building, you're supposed to be 18 and over, and you're supposed to be away from children. If you take those into context, a lot of these people, and the problems where I have is when the bomb goes off at 12:30 in the morning. That's outside, so you already have state law saying that you're not allowed to set it off after 11 o'clock, and that's where I think we need to start actually enforcing some of the state things before we start making little minor things, because a lot of the houses in, like, you know, like in your neighborhood, like
It would be, basically be illegal
the
to
fire,
shoot off
because
anything
you're already,
like
you're within 100 feet of somebody else's property, no matter what. And then you would just have to look for people setting them off after 11 o'clock. That's where it might be. Okay, I like fireworks. I like a good party, I like some fireworks. Just don't like them when I'm in the middle of sleep and your whole house shakes. And I think that's where it gets disrespectful, and it just is a matter of respecting your neighbors. So the first step I would recommend is to actually enforce the state laws, which do eliminate most of the problems.
If you can be, it's just being at the right place at the right time.
Exactly, because you have to have either video evidence of it, or you have to be a witness to it. And that's a problem, but even with these state things, I happened to go to, last year I was in Parma for a 4th of July party, and that block had a better 4th of July than Medina did, and those houses aren't 100 feet apart. It was within the 4 to 11 thing, but again, as soon as you don't meet this criteria, it's against the law. And so I would say my first recommendation would be to enforce the state laws.
I also looked into the Tannerite, that we mentioned. It is completely legal. It is legal by ATF, and it's legal because each one of the components, they're nothing. You have to put them together and mix them, and they have to be, the way to explode it, it has to be something, basically rifle bullet, because it has to be over a certain velocity in order to have the material explode. So there's not even a law on that. I never even heard of it. I mean, I didn't know what it was called. I mean, I've seen videos, and then I looked at videos after it was mentioned, and
Were you getting complaints?
Pardon?
Were we getting complaints from Saturday?
Yeah, and, you know, I had never, like I said, I'd never heard of it, so I did a little bit of research on it. And that's what I came up with. So that's not even covered by a state law or anything else, and you'd really have to have some kind of evidence that somebody had that. I'm not sure, I guess you'd have to have video evidence, and I don't even know if you had a video, if that would explain what it is.
I understand what that's saying, and I do, like, I had a resident who honed in a location for me, and that was up at that Franklin Drive, Foskett Road area, and pointed out 2 residents. Of course, when I was there, that was nothing was going on. But I don't know that it's unreasonable to, like, start logging these locations to a point. I don't really want our PD to be staking out for firework violations, but I also would like to know if they're sensitive to where they're at, you know, and if they have a choice of sitting, you know, if they're taking traffic, you know, records here at the town hall, or they can drive a couple of blocks over. And I'm not opposed to trying that kind of a thing. I want them to be available, flexible, because of course if it is a peak time, it's also a peak time for a real accident to happen, and we need to have them be able to get there. But enforcing these are always a challenge. We will have a chance in public comment that expect to have some feedback on that. This isn't really a discussion time, but at the same time, I don't want people to think they're not being heard. So.
Chief, didn't we look into this, didn't we have one violation or something this last 4th of July, something like that?
One following your offense.
Okay.
That actually called the police department? Is that what you're saying?
Call 911.
Called 911.
And the year before, it was, like 2 or 3 or something, it was a very low number also.
And as far as, you know, after a meeting or something, if you wanna have more conversation, we can talk more details, I'm happy to do that. Not quite yet, almost, we'll get to this part in the meeting. Okay. I'd like to move to approval of previous minutes. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following minutes as written. October 28, 2022, it's an emergency meeting. In attendance, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Eastwood, Mr. Christopher. Have a second?
Second.
I'm stating my objection. Last meeting to Trustee Eastwood, you had stated that I received these minutes, in September. You said
No, I
sometime in
think
September.
if I said September, it was December is what.
Yeah, but you did say September, and I went back and
We
listened.
can correct it.
I clearly could not have gotten
Yeah.
minutes in September that were written in October, but, so just to be clear, and also, I say, keep in mind that during the month of December, there's the year-end process going on, and I believe there was like 25 sets of minutes sent to me all at once, so there was just no way possible to get through all those and close out the year and really, for the
Yeah.
township's sake, the year-end process is
That was in the end of December when you got it, so.
correct, and I made myself pretty clear that I thought there needed to be more content and some spelling issues. I think your name was misspelled and some, I just, that it would have been too time consuming to go back and proofread
Okay.
what needed to be changed, so, I'm stating that again.
Okay. Roll call?
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye. like to make a motion to approve the following minutes as written. November 3rd, 2022. It was a special meeting number 1. In attendance were Mr. Eastwood, Mr. Christopher. Roll call.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Forgive me. Roll call.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain?
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
I would note that's the same objection would stand, correct?
Did you happen to get I did talk to local government services, amongst other things, on Friday. The advice
You
that
can put abstain.
I was
You
given
can put abstain if you want.
was completely different than what they told you, so did you happen to get that in writing? Because I was told that the revised code takes precedence over anything that, and the revised code does not say that, the minutes are anyone's responsibility, so I mean, did you happen to take that out?
When did I sign both sections?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cause I know you were.
I have met with legal multiple times, and, I know that I have their full backing on what we're doing, so I'm not making that up. And I think ultimately, he said if you'll submit minutes to us, then we'll go, but without having your involvement in submitting minutes to us, we're falling far out of compliance by being as delayed as we are, so we have to get caught up.
So,
I'd like to make a motion to approve the following minutes as written. November 3rd, 2022, special meeting number 2. In attendance, Mr. Eastwood, Mr. Christopher. Roll call, please.
No, second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Abstain?
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
that was another objection.
I was just checking to see if they're catching it. Approval of department reports for June. I move to approve June 2023 department reports. For the police, single-sided, 3 pages. For zoning, double-sided, 6 pages. For service, single-sided, 1 page. For fire, single-sided, 1 page, for a total of 12 pages.
Second.
What was that?
You said 1 page.
Fire, single-sided,
2 pages.
2 pages, I correct that. Thank you. You have a second? Roll call.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
I would like to make a motion to open the floor for,
Can I get a couple things before you do that?
what would you like to talk about?
well, there's just a couple of issues. I did have a question about payroll. The overtime slips lately have changed, so I just wanna see how they're doing things so that I know how to process them. It used to be that the officers turned in their overtime slips for the days that the overtime actually was on.
Hey, chief,
Can you?
this has to do with PD overtime slips?
Okay, so, the officers used to turn in the overtime, like for the days that they actually worked the overtime. So now they're turning in on the day, like the last day of that week. Is that how you want that done? You know, I'll see an officer who worked 13 hours, but that's not the day they're putting the overtime on. So,
We had this discussion,
Yep.
Chief and I, so if they work, if it's more than 12 hours in a day, that 13th hour would be an overtime for that day. But if they work anything less than that, the overtime doesn't really count in until they get over the 40 hours. So even when you look at it in paychecks, that's when they start popping in the overtime. So we thought it would be prudent to follow the paychecks version of it, which does give them overtime if they work more than, it is 12 hours, right?
12 hours.
it does.
12 hours in a day,
It does
and then-
not though. It doesn't. Like, we had officers who worked 13 hours and it doesn't, it doesn't automatically apply, just so you know.
Yeah, so we were trying to be in compliance with like the paychecks thing on the actual computer when it's getting in. So that's the whole meaning behind it, because you don't really work overtime until they get over 40 hours. And so they're usually getting 40 hours on that last
Yeah,
day.
that's, and I just wanna make sure that
That's what our thought
if we're on,
process is.
if
Yeah.
everyone's on the same page there,
Yeah.
that's fine, I don't,
Yeah,
it
we had
makes
some
more-
discussion on it and stuff, and it made sense, but like, even like when I work at, you know, my guys, you know, on Friday, if they're getting 41, 42 hours, I'm not, you know, even though if they worked on Monday 9 hours, they're not getting past that 40 hours, cause we also have the ability to let them go home earlier or whatever, and not get that, so giving them overtime before they actually overtime didn't make sense.
Now, to the point of the PD, however, if they work 13 hours on a day, they do get 1 hour overtime regardless for that 13th hour. But they don't get any other overtime in general until they're past the 40-hour mark.
Correct.
So that was a problem early on, is that they were doing shift coverage that was thought to be overtime, but then it was causing problems. Now he got it straightened up and he's really, I think, doing way better.
If, just so you know though, paychecks, there was no way to write that into the program, that
Oh,
13
okay.
hour, that has to be something that we have to contact paychecks directly on. It was just not
And where
an
that would
option,
be
so.
an issue is if they work like on Tuesday 13 hours, but then when they get down to Friday and they work, say, 2 hours less, so they get like 39 hours for the week, we would have to make sure that we punch in that 1 hour that they did over the 12.
Like, or if they used sick or vacation time for that, in that week, because normally they would not get overtime then, but because of this being in the contract,
Yeah,
it's almost like court time, where they
Right.
get the overtime no matter what.
so it takes extra diligence,
Correct.
for sure.
Correct, so that's just, I know in the past, like, when we first implemented this paychecks product, that because of the way the system is written, that the officers didn't like that, having the overtime show at the end of the week, but that was the only way to do it and make the accruals work. So I just wanted to make sure we're all
Yeah,
on the same
absolutely.
page on that. So there's that. The other two things I have is, we talked about last week, or last meeting, the employee on workers' compensation.
Okay,
There was, this is turning into a little bit of a more complicated mess than, so someone faxed in a claim form in March. I'm not sure who faxed it in. It went to somebody at workers' comp who's no longer there, but it was already processed. And it was waiving from the dates of the February 8th of 2023 to March 24th of 2023. It was waiving the salary benefits for the employee. So,
And this is for what, for,
this is
For eight what?
from
for
2/8.
workers' comp?
Mhm. So, you know, the contract says that the injured employee must shall file for workers' compensation and sign a waiver assigning to the township those sums of money, e.g. temporary total disability benefits he or she would ordinarily receive as his, her weekly compensation is determined by law for those number of weeks he or she received benefits under this section, okay? So, immediately upon being injured, there's two things that the employee needs to do, and it's on the employee to do this. They have to fill out, you know, whatever forms they need for medical, and then they also have to fill out the salary forms, the request for temporary total compensation. And then they fill out a waiver for on top of that because the township continues to pay their compensation.
Right.
They fill out this notice for the BWC to send the township this check to us instead of the employee, where both names would be on the check when we get it. It's there, the employee's name plus the township, and they then sign, endorse the back. And
So are you saying that the person is receiving both benefits? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is somebody, and I can only give you the copy of the fax that went through on March 3rd at 8:02 in the morning, faxed in a claim form
What
waiving.
telephone number do you fax from?
It got faxed from, it looks like an image, it says imaging, so I think it's like look at 663368352, doesn't show you. I can tell you.
Is this regarding the Ventura claim?
Yeah,
Because I would have done it.
okay, so it waived the compensation to returned to us. So,
Okay.
from February
Well,
8th to.
right. One, I was told to fill out these forms. I've never handled a workman's comp claim before. This is a first for me on this. And I filled out more forms regarding this workman's compensation, okay, through our Sedwig, through DWC and everything, so
So the employee really is supposed to fill in the forms.
I thought the employee was supposed to fill out just the first report of injury.
No, the employee is supposed to fill in these forms, and, so, okay, so we have to appeal this now,
Okay?
okay? And the forms that,
gets appealed to Sedgwick, right?
no,
or no,
to
to workers'
BWC,
comp.
that they're gonna help us, but the problem is that the forms that he filled out most recently, they asked some questions, and I don't know if you looked at these, but he didn't answer all the questions, so that's problematic. Also, they're asking, do you know if there was any other income during this time?
I don't believe it was.
Are you able to find out?
I can ask.
Why don't you share that information with me and I'll get with Chief.
Yes,
Okay.
this is, yeah.
Try to be specific about what we need to do though, and,
Yeah,
we'll
I'm
run it down. I don't wanna listen to the meeting to get the information.
No, I'm being very specific on what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
Because
because,
even something you can talk with, meet with Chief on, just to walk him through this, because it does sound intricate.
well, that's, I mean, that's what needs to be done, because this is, like I said, the contract's very specific of what needs to be done, and this is now, we're, you know, the township is at, we're already, you know, we've paid out approximately, we've paid out over $34,000 in the past 6 months in salary, of which we would have, you know, for the first 12 weeks gotten 72% back, and then after that, 66.5% back. But we're looking at, right now, we're at a total loss because we can't get the information that we need, so.
Well, you'll have copies of that available for me in contacts, I don't wanna take any originals.
I made copies, I mean, this needs to, you know, this needs to be handled, and it needs to be handled now.
Is this something that I didn't respond to in February, March, April, or is this something?
No, this isn't something that you do, this isn't,
But I mean, it would have been, they'd have been reporting something all the time, wouldn't they?
Since, you know, I'm just getting made aware of it now, this is an issue now.
So I'm just saying, is it something that's been, something we could have been more proactive on somehow,
well,
outside of the opportunity to put reports out? But I mean, the reports coming back in would have come to us, no, from Sedgwick, or from Workers' Comp?
no, because workers' comp was under the impression that they were told that it was a medical claim only, so, and the thing is without knowing where the employee was as far as what he was doing with, you know, there's times where the employee doesn't put in for the reimbursement until the end of the 6 months. We've had that happen with our employees before, so it is a little bit of a waiting game, but, you know, and follow up with that, not now, we have to,
We got some work to do.
yes, cause I mean, we've got
Thank
a
you.
good amount of money out there.
So the employee can wait until the end of 6 months and then put this in?
Correct, cause instead of having to fill out the information multiple times, and the township's been okay with that. I mean, you know, it wouldn't, if the trustees wanted to pass a resolution that the employee has to do that more often, they could, but they haven't, so, you know, that kinda leaves it up to the employee to do this when they have to do it, I mean, that's the rule, but it doesn't say when.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, this is just, so we will be appealing it, but like I said, I mean, I need the answers to the questions that were asked, but, and then lastly, the tax budget. The tax budget that was presented, and I brought copies, not originals. I brought the 2023 tax budget and the 2024 tax budget. I know we've had a lot of back and forth in emails, and I brought the certificate. I wanted to make you aware that, you know, I know we have a difference of opinion on what you consider to be hopeful. I went back and I listened, Doug, to the May 11th meeting. I was very specific in what needed to be done, because I think you believe that I jumped in after the fact. I don't believe that to be true. But the bottom line is that the numbers that, I know you called down to UAN, and they told me that, you know, that they explained to you that the 2023 number column is live, it's live numbers. Changing those numbers unless you have reason to believe that you're gonna have a big, you know, amount of cash come in, you shouldn't be doing that. And what ended up happening is, not only did you inflate revenue, but then you went and decreased numbers of expenditures below what we've actually spent year to date. And that, so, well, it's just, the numbers are not alignment. And so I brought the tax budgets, I'm not I received an email from Prosecutor Matt Camara. I'm not turning in the tax budget to the county, you can,
Yeah.
if that's what you wanna do. But I believe that the budget is, I mean, it's disingenuous at best, the numbers are not accurate, they well exceed the numbers on our certificate.
I appreciate that information. For the record, the day was the day we were supposed to have it turned in, and so they did receive it today. It's time-stamped, and I did specifically talk to the county, I've talked to the county auditors, the state auditors, and the prosecutors. And, there's no question there's gonna be some adjustments that have to be made, and that the numbers aren't all correct. But everybody is willing to work with us, understanding the situation. So we don't disagree that there's numbers in there that are wrong, and there's gonna be some adjustments that need to be made, but everybody encouraged me still to turn it in as it was. So the same one we gave you, they had received it today. So we will follow the lead and
I had talked with the county, state, and I also talked with UAN. I read them, one paragraph that you sent, read it so it was word for word, I read it to them. They said, well, we can't, I said, I'm not asking you for Medina Township, I'm asking you a general question. The bottom line was, they said, you should be within about 90% of where the certificate is. And our budgets and certificates were off 25%, I think I'm safe in saying that. They were off 2.5 million when they should have been off, we'll say, if we're gonna be conservative, about $1 million. This last budget, because we were at 11,441,000, I think it was. So we could have been at 10 million and been safe, and they said that's part of the reason there was always this big gap between the budget number and the certificate. There was always this $2-3 million number.
correction.
Right, exactly.
So I'm just saying that I hear you, but you know, I think you hear us as well. And if I didn't have the prosecutor, if I didn't have the county auditor, if I didn't have the state auditor all encouraging me to work together, I would not have moved forward with it. So I'm comfortable where we're at. No question we'll have some adjustments, corrections to be made. I don't expect it to be a funding problem or a future problem for the township, and quite honestly, it's been a pretty significant education for me, and I'm sure they'll say the same thing.
Well, I wonder what's bothering me is that, you know, I don't know what you are told when you call these places, but when I talk to them, like, for instance, UAN, I was told that you called down there and told them that the trustees passed a resolution to put all of you on UAN, and I refused to do so. These are recorded calls, Doug,
That's
they're
fine.
on the record, so I mean, I don't
If
think.
they wanna play them, that's fine. I know that we asked you multiple times.
Very clearly said that you said that they passed resolutions, so I mean.
Let's ask the question, did we not ask you many times to make UAN available for our access? Did I not ask you?
You did
Over
not.
and over. Please don't tell me that.
You asked me one time in an email, and UAN is not available to you because the UAN computer
The
is not.
UAN conversations that we're done discussing this, okay?
Well,
It's,
it's wrong for you to call and say something that's not true,
yeah,
so,
okay.
I mean, so people may be telling you things, but when they're giving you information, they can only give you information when you give them proper information to begin with.
I can say for a fact, we never plugged into any UAN information for Medina Township, ever. The only information I ever got was UAN, was generic information for the filing and how systems worked. That anybody could do that, so.
I believe that.
That's-
What I don't believe is that when you're getting information on any subject, you have to be able to you have to be able to trust the person who's giving you the information to start with.
Well, I hear you, and if you wanna give me that person's name and you never give me anybody's name, I will call them time and
I
reach
don't
out to-
understand why, I do my job, I don't know why you always need a name to talk to.
Like I said,
This
this
is not-
conversation is over, and I make a move to open the floor,
Public comments.
public comments, that's what I'm doing. Can I open the floor, public comments?
No, no,
Roll call?
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
No.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
no.
The floor is now open for, thank you for being patient.
It's okay, it's always interesting to hear. But back to the fireworks discussion. Brian Farren, 3335 Miles Road, Medina. With all due respect, and thank you for responding, Doug, to the email. It was Doug, or Chuck, if you were not in the area, it was like a war zone back here.
I heard,
It was terrible.
some fireworks.
First of all, what the clowns or people in Columbus had in mind with this legislation is purely stupid. 4 PM till 11 PM to shoot fireworks. Our beautiful golden retriever won't leave the house, scared to death. We have to put calming meds in her, just to even try to get her outside. Not to mention, we can't sit on our deck and enjoy the peace and quiet, and I believe we have some right to do so. And enjoy the country that we all live here for a reason. And, I think the other email indicates fireworks on Memorial Day is totally inappropriate. It's an insult to our veterans. I see no purpose in allowing it, so our recommendations to this panel is to consider restrictions on Memorial Day weekend. Change the hours from 9 PM to 11 PM. That gives you plenty of time at dusk to shoot fireworks and be in bed by 11 o'clock, which is beyond our bedtime, but we could live with that. We're old. Removing the weekends from before and after July 4th. I see no value in this long window of being able to do so. People have parties usually on the 3rd or the 4th. And thank you for looking up the Tannerite issue. I had no idea. But we have a lot of disrespectful neighbors, unfortunately. And I know you can't police that, chief. I know, unfortunately, we hate to be the guys that have to call. And by the way, we didn't call the last time, but somebody else did. And I saw some of your officers trying to respond. But it is difficult to figure out who's doing it. So the respect on the fireworks would be helpful. The other side of the coin is the gunshots. And I know there's a lot of issues around it. We have one neighbor, if they're not shooting fireworks, one Sunday afternoon from probably 2 till almost dark. It's not just a couple quick shots, it's bam, 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 bam. And it goes on and on and on, and it's ridiculous. And when I see a driveway full of cars, probably from out of the county, gathering at somebody's house, is it because they're from Parma, they come down and they can enjoy the township laws where they can shoot guns? This is not a Second Amendment issue, this is a courtesy to your neighborhood issue. And I hope if we do get a call, and we won't be reasonable, we're not unreasonable, but when somebody goes on 6-7 hours firing off automatic weapons, I don't know if it's a gathering for other nefarious purposes. God knows what the country's been going through, we don't know anymore. So when we see something, we say something. So I hope you guys can consider some of these requests. I think, we heard from all the way on North Huntington Street in Medina Township, they had just as many issues as we did in Weymouth. My brother in Westfield Township, they have horses. The horses just go crazy with this kind of stuff. So obviously people in Columbus didn't consider anything in the more rural areas, although we're really not rural anymore, that fireworks and loud noises can cause. There was a time and place in Medina Township, you could go out and probably fire a few rounds at your target or hunting, whatever. But it's far beyond that nowadays, and it really is a time to be addressed. So I thank you for listening.
Thank you for your patience. Yes.
Susan McKiernan, 3306 Old Weymouth Road in the village of Weymouth. I'm pretty sure that at least 3 people called on the 4th of July because I was one, and my partner didn't know, and he called also. But the fireworks across the street from us went out 7 days before the 4th of July and have gone every day since, including today, including tonight, and I know that the police were called tonight because I got a text about it. The patrolman at first who came said there's nothing we can do, so it would be a good idea to have the police officers know about the 150-foot rule because they could have seen that wasn't in effect. They had a 4-year-old child out there all night in the middle of that. I know that at least 3 calls were made to the police, and it seems to me that when the bombs go off in the village, maybe the noise ordinance could kick in that the township has, because it's really not bearable. And,
Can I ask you to expand on the noise ordinance? Can you tell me
didn't
more
you
about
pass a noise ordinance against dogs?
Against dogs, yes. I know there's some.
Couldn't you
over in
add to
area,
that?
but I don't think it works with fireworks though.
I know, but you could add to it.
I
Not,
don't think
not
the
fireworks,
ordinance is
the
allowed.
bombs.
That's Tandy right,
The bombs.
they clear, when they rattle pictures right off your living room wall.
Is that next to you?
It
Uh,
might be-
down
might
the
be
street,
something
Nichols
else, might be a
Road,
nuisance.
I don't think it's a noise ordinance, but maybe like a I think maybe you could do
Are
a
you guys
The,
familiar?
the patrolman that came to our house did finally go over, because when Richard went over onto their property to ask them to finally give it up, they said, why don't you go home before you get hurt? So the patrolman did respond to that. And also when he heard that they were going off, one woke me up at 12:30 at night, and I was still awake when it went off at 1:30 at night. But these people in this house, there are 2 families living in that house now, but one of the families gets off work at 8 and starts to set them off, and that's 8 a.m. So when you've been through this now, and up to today, July 1st, or maybe before, up to today, it's too much.
I think other townships are looking at similar, you might wanna, I don't know when the next township meeting is for all, but I would certainly think the county commissioners and the trustees really all look at this comprehensively.
Well, even like you said, the 8 AM thing as well, without outside the window.
Crazy.
So that would just have to be something where we could catch them and enforce the actual law that's already in place, so.
I will say that I know that a landlord, because I am a landlord, can evict you for noise. And the landlord is not in state, but he knows about it, and he said if there's one more, he would evict them, and he said that on Sunday. But he is really alarmed by it, because the police may not get many calls, but I get many calls, and other people in the village are calling each other, and lots of people are calling the landlord, so a lot of people are upset by it. It's really not bearable, so.
No, I hear you. I know that, and you've heard us say this before, we struggle with the enforcement. And we'll circle that wagon, okay? And you and I can connect, we got each other's numbers. Probably the Medina County Township Association, we could probably glean something from them. It is a topic we've discussed before, and it is a topic people have struggled with. But I'm sure that it's becoming a bigger issue as time goes on, and
I think Brunswick Hills banned it, if I recall, Brunswick Hills Township. I thought I heard Guilford Township. I don't know beyond that, but those are the
Okay.
2 that just popped up lately, so, I know Guilford's fairly rural, but
Yeah.
you have horses and livestock, that's a very disturbing thing to, and by the way, I used to put on the fireworks show for Medina for 20 years as JC's on July 3rd. One shot, 45 minutes, and that was it. And it seemed to please the whole
there are
town.
good shows to see.
And that seemed to be enough. I don't know why all this other law was changed in the first place.
Well, you know, as I think Trustee Johnson said, the laws on the books right now, they can be enforced. I mean, if people are shooting off outside those hours, they can be enforced and looked into. And of course, I don't like to hear anybody say, you better leave before you get hurt. That doesn't sit well with me at all. That's not acceptable. So, but I'd like to see if we can, use what we've got right now and modify, I'll say, behavior.
I don't know what these guys must have spent on fireworks, but
Can't
there's a heck of a
imagine.
lot of money to go the rounds that they did. And the same with their firing ranges.
Thank you.
When I moved here, growing up in Ohio, they were illegal. I moved back here, they were illegal. The neighborhood that I lived in, every year that I've been there, they've been going off. And last year they became, quote, legal. But like I said, it would be almost impossible to shoot off fireworks in my neighborhood and be legal because of the distance from houses, the distance from you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that's not under 18 in any one of the houses, and people shoot them off, so, we can enforce some of that stuff right now.
And I believe sober is another third leg that,
There is,
I
yes.
gotta believe when I see a party, there's gotta be a few beers floating around that if the guy shooting him is impaired, the officer should take, I'm sure, steps to check that out as
Yeah,
well.
that is one of the ones is, not being impaired, so.
I'm pretty sure that we're not able to do the noise ordinance because, I remember it was Chief Colonius that had looked into this, and got the prosecutor's office, but it just, Montville kinda had taken a lead on that, and then it was, it'd be too difficult, but I do remember there being something about, like, there could still be a disturbing the peace,
Hey,
to-
Chief, maybe we touch base with Chief Neal and see what they have, cause I know, I do remember her, they looked into some stuff with some noise ordinances and some other types of enforcing stuff like
Sure.
this, just kinda see what they have. But also, we'll look into, what we can do with the current law, with citations and warnings and stuff like that, and, take a baby step towards doing it, cause I agree, 8 o'clock in the morning, midnight, I'm in your neighborhood too, I hear it all the time, I mean, I literally had my windows shake, and first thing is, what blew up?
Yeah,
Or who
exactly,
blew up?
yeah, you
So-
don't know anymore. The other, one of the point last time, sorry, the, police blotter mentioned, homeowners associations, chief. Someone filed a complaint, but it's like, they said the officer, I think it was over at the, off 18, it might have been in Montville Township, but regardless, the officer answering the call said, if you're in a homeowners association, it's their rules, not, so I don't know if it's worth connecting with these HOAs to say, I can't imagine cluster homes being allowed to shoot fireworks, but somebody was doing it and filed a complaint.
There's no way.
And they said, oh, it's a civil matter with your HOA, not a police matter, which sounds kind of odd, but I think it was in the police blotter yesterday or today perhaps. So it's interesting, these things are going a lot of different directions, but people are fed up, bottom line.
Hey Chief, remember when this law first passed, Terry Grace had sent out an email saying that he was gonna have a meeting with all the chiefs and kind of coordinate something, did that ever happen, or?
We had one meeting regarding when it was first coming, before it came out, before the law came out, when it was still, because there was talk about it. Okay, and since then, no, we have not.
Okay.
Are there others who would like to speak? Yes.
Crampton Road. Before you do a lot of this remodeling, I think you better take a good hard look at that floor. Because if that room is built the way I think it is, you're gonna have problems if you don't address it soon. That's it.
Thank you. Mary?
Mary Ackerman, 5205 Baker Road. I just had a question about the fiscal officer and the workman's comp claim. I mean, I know it's her ex-husband and all, but I can't believe that 5 months has gone by with no correspondence at all from workman's comp. I filed plenty of workman's comp forms in my previous job, and they're right on those.
Oh, there was correspondence, they were trying to get a hold of the employee.
Okay, but I would think you would notify your trustees that
we
there
talked
was
about it in
or
the
the chief.
We've talked about it in meetings actually,
Oh, I don't recall, only last meeting maybe a
yeah.
little bit
No,
was,
this has come up in meetings before.
oh.
The salary, like I said, a lot of the employees that
But usually when it's a workman's comp claim, the employee's either injured or ill or something that they have trouble getting to the department or wherever to make out these forms. So someone has to kind of be a liaison, and not often, the chief doesn't really have that as a job description, but being that you've been here for 8 years, I would think this is not your first workman's comp claim with an employee with the township,
correct, the only.
that you could kind of help these people without it being brought up as a big deal in the meeting. That's all.
Well,
Thank you.
Actually, this is what we do at the meetings. We for transparency's sake, and because he is my husband, I think it's appropriate that it be brought up at the meeting so that everybody does know what's going on. I would hate for anyone to think that anything is being hidden, so I think it's the proper way to.
One thing I will say on that though is you're a fiscal officer and we're trustees, so we're not technically allowed to communicate, make decisions on that throughout there, but that is something that you can communicate outside of the meetings to us or to the chief and stuff like that, so we can get a heads up on it, because to me, this is really the first guy I've been notified, as even the police commissioner, that we're having issues with this right now.
Well,
I
I
mean, I knew
think-
he was hurt, I knew he was doing workman's comp, but I didn't know there was any issues with it.
Well, maybe you don't remember when, because we've talked about this in the meeting before, that workers' comp couldn't get a hold of the employee, that the employee wasn't calling back, and then chief handled that, and then, but like I said, that the medical portion is moving along fine, and for the salary part of it, this is how the employees handle this, so there wasn't really anything to look at until the 6 months was over. So this was just not something to worry about until, like, this is how this normally goes, Chuck.
So as long as you're familiar with it, I would just expect you to be in contact with the chief to kind of get it moving in the right direction, you know, outside of this meeting, so.
Correct, except like I said, because of the situation being as it is, I think that full transparency is important.
If you wanna contact one of us, obviously not all of us, but to do that for the sake of expeditious, and again, if you were to email us, it's every bit as much on the record, every bit as transparent as in a public meeting, so hopefully we can utilize that moving forward some.
I think there's been questions asked about the employee, about Matt, so by residents, and I think, I don't think there's anything, I think it's good to just keep everybody on the same page, so, you know, when we're talking about over $30,000 that, you know, the township, this is what workers' comp is for, and, you know, we choose to, if the township chooses to pay the advancement of the wages, but, I mean, we have a plan that, to recoup, I mean, that's what we should be doing, but, I mean, maybe, I thought we've had workers' comp claims since you've been here, Chuck, none since the two of you, I don't think, nothing that's been long-term like this, but this, we do talk about this
This is
in
the most
meetings,
dramatic one that
so.
I can remember, so.
Yeah, I think the last one was, when Detective Boiler got hurt, so that was quite some time ago, but we discussed that in the meeting too, you know, it's something that has come up, you know, from time to time, so.
Yes.
Sandra Bell, 341 Hammond Road, wasn't going to make a public comment, but in light of what you just said about emails being transparent, public record, I appreciate the fiscal officer bringing these things up in a meeting, because I haven't been able to get my records requests since January when you fired Nick, and there's been plenty of emails that I've asked for that I haven't received, so.
How many records requests are we at with you right now?
Probably over 50,
Yeah, over 50.
probably over 50. And I'm sorry that you feel that way, Chuck.
What?
I'm sorry that you're being sarcastic
I'm
about
not being
it.
sarcastic, I'm
I
just saying.
think I have a right as a resident to know what's going on in this township. And I appreciate the fiscal officer does bring these things up in the meeting, because I can't get records requests. So when I make a records request for emails because of comments that you guys make, and I don't receive them, I think it's bothersome. Transparency is a big deal.
Sure it is, and I agree,
Okay.
and I don't usually comment on this stuff, but I would like to, Chrissy, do you even have an idea on how many records requests we've had since January? We're well over 100, correct?
A lot of them are being filled.
Right,
They're in
we're
the
working on
works.
them, so.
And I'm sorry we haven't gotten to your Sandra, I believe you'll be next probably, so. And I've filled some of hers,
Mhm.
so.
Hmm.
We've tried to scatter.
Or,
Okay.
And
We
I
are-
mean, there is other township business.
well, I
that
love
we
it, I
can
love it to
add
hear that we're hiring the assistant for the I don't know where that stands, but that seems to have gone by the wayside too.
We just interviewed another person this week, and I was gonna mention it later, but Chrissy and Elaine did a super job. I was in the interview, but they did a super job. They handled a lot of the interview, and I appreciate how professional they were. So we're looking for the right person.
Well, I
We get
appreciate
somebody
that.
in there, and,
appreciate that.
you know, that's moving along.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone else? Like to make a motion to close public comment?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
Public comment is closed. Trustee comments.
Well, since I already said what a good job Chrissy and Elaine did, but they did do a good job. I've had some residents, in the last couple of weeks, whatever, month, some more people say what a good job they felt the police department and the fire department's doing. It's just nice to hear people come up, you know, tell you what a good job your people are doing, so I just wanted you to know that. That's it.
You have anything, sir?
Yeah, you know, we were just trying to catch up with 8 million emails when I was, the Boy Scout, High Adventure Trek. I appreciate you guys coming when I was gone.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. It was nice to do a walkabout, but, I just find out that, you know, a few of our officers, you know, Shauna and Tom, you know, it's 1 year anniversary and how much they've grown in that last year and the thing, and then, you know, of course, now we have, a couple of new officers, on top of that, and seeing the new blood in the department. I haven't been home very often, but I've kind of stumbled upon a couple, you know, car accident and then also, a domestic call, and just to see how well those officers are responding to our residents and the different things going on. Very happy with that. I had another thing in my brain, I just kind of forgot. Oh, I was meeting with Susan over the weekend, and you know, the Weymouth Days are coming up, which is like the community garage sales, and we have music, and we have the open house and stuff like that. And I was kind of wanting to talk with you guys maybe about having a booth over there to represent the township and stuff, just because I haven't been able to work too much on a community day, but you know, this is the next closest thing that we would have, and I would love to be able to get a booth over there and sit and talk to residents and encourage people to attend that. It's a great function. So.
Great idea. Do we need to make a formal motion at all, or?
Well,
Because I mean, eventually you're probably gonna wanna have something to hand out or to share.
Something to hand out, or, you know, I personally used my pop-up tent last year, that didn't go very well for the pop-up tent.
I got one for the next
So,
one.
yeah, that wasn't very well, so, but.
I'm not kidding.
But,
I can
yeah, you know,
donate
get a
mine.
table and some chairs and stuff like that, and, you know, maybe I'll talk with police chief, you know, come sit with me, and maybe we can do a rotation with the trustees or something like that, so just a thought to put out
Okay.
there, that's
I
put
like
up,
the
and
idea.
I would love to be involved with stuff like that,
Yeah,
so
I
if
like
you don't
the idea.
mind, I don't
Oh,
wanna impose,
not
I
at
know.
all, that'd be great.
So,
You know, they're a super group of people, and it would be nice to support them.
All right, in light of the accident this weekend at this intersection, the severity of it, the multiple conversations we've had through the course of time, and specifically even in this last year, I talked to Denny and I remembered some conversation we had about lighted stop signs, and we realized that we never actually pushed for the county to do them. We feel it's a county sign. He gave me a contact number. I tried a couple times, couldn't get through to the gentleman today. But I'm gonna push hard to get the lighted signs on the stop signs here on Huffman. I'm gonna push to have possibly some high accident area signs posted either way.
maybe we can get a 4-way stop there.
Well, I don't know, you know, anything we do there is gonna be a nightmare for traffic. You know, roundabout, there we go. You thought people were close before Christmas, they'll be right in your sight.
Why does Montville get all the fun, you know?
You were doing
So-
good, Chuck, until you said that.
But I mean, it's just, it has remnants of Remsen and 3, you know. By the grace of God, the fatalities haven't been there, but we've seen some horrible things over the years. And,
Yeah, one of your
and-
misses.
I was gonna say, what most people don't hear are all the tires that screech and the horns that blow when you're sitting in this office. And I'm not here all the time, but I'm here long enough to say it's a very regular event. So, but I wanted to let let you know that I'm pursuing that. Keep you posted if I find out anything.
Even this accident that was just here this last weekend, if it was going the other direction, we would have a car in our office. Cause that's where the car went, you know, on the opposite side, so. Then we wouldn't have to worry about the wallpaper.
You know, and there-
The semis are what scares me.
There is only so much you can do, but we can, the lighted sign, we can do more. The high accident areas, we can do more. The only other thing we can do is get the state to pass a jamming thing or something, so when you're driving, your phones don't work anymore. And that's tongue in cheek, it's not, I'm not pushing for any legislation. The other thing is, I would like to make a motion, I had a chance to go to the BWC presentation this week, and this was about safety and OSHA, and as it turns out, there's a current grant that I think could be very helpful for us, and Denny and I spoke. So I'd like to make a motion to apply for a safety grant through BWC for the purpose of purchasing trench safety equipment and training.
Second.
Roll call. Oh,
Discussion?
yeah, sorry about that.
Please elaborate on
Trench safety, so when there are any excavations over 5 foot, you have to have a trench box of sorts, something to hold, to keep the ground from coming in. And that can happen on a road culvert, anytime. It can happen on catch basins, it can happen on washouts. What appealed to me in this was that it included aluminum shoring, aluminum trenching, so the smaller equipment we have in-house, it doesn't handle big steel boxes.
Right.
But it would handle those, and there's a 4-to-1 match on it, so up to $12,000. So, you know, you pay 4, they pay 12, and you have access to some, and it's a limited time, it's not gonna last forever.
How tall are the boxes?
The sizes are.
Oh, I know what some of them.
I mean, chances are we're looking at something that's 6 by 6, you know,
6 by
something
12,
small, yeah.
Something like that, okay.
And the spreaders are interchangeable.
Good.
But I got the information from the vendor today. I was gonna get together with Denny and, you know, see what works for him, cause his needs and my needs and my company are 2 different scenarios. But you're talking about a tremendous opportunity, even if it's only for a limited time. And then beyond the trench safety boxes, there's training. And you get around a bunch of contractors, and they're the first people that say they don't need to hear it. They've done it, that's what they're professionals, they don't need to know they have to wear steel toes. And I'm gonna tell you, repetition is what matters. You gotta hear it over and over and over again, to where you hear backup alarm, you don't just keep walking, you know, unless it's the other way. So, I think that's something that kinda is like pulling teeth to get everybody to get excited about, but I also think, in light of workers' comp conversations, we wanna stay away from them if we can, and that's part of it. So,
I don't even wanna know what our rates are gonna, like, we're.
so, if that's everything, I'd like to make, no, roll call.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Christopher?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Thank you.
Denny, are you gonna apply for this?
In the last 2 weeks, I've listened to
You
3
need a
videos.
motion to sign something, or is that online, or how?
I haven't seen no paperwork on that.
Many guys were killed over the years of trench bunks. They're such a necessary.
You seconded it, didn't
I
you?
seconded it.
Doug, is there,
It was not pretty.
Doug, is
Especially
there,
template for
is there
seasonal
anything
labor.
that we need to make a motion to have Denny sign or anything?
At this point, I'm kinda running with it, that's how this one is going. We talked about that earlier. Okay,
If you're used to using them, I
I
agree.
have 2 quick things.
Like if
Are
you
you
have
done?
trash pickup, it's been.
Yeah, real quick.
we're real done, but yes,
Yeah.
we've got a real
So,
quick, no,
real- I just-
We're done at 8:30.
Yeah, no, this, 2 seconds. If everyone can remember, those, when the purchase orders are voted on here,
That's ridiculous.
I just wait until you know they're certified before anyone goes out and spends money. That's, you know, I still have to get them into the system to make sure that, you know, just because in case there is encumbered funds or anything needs to be moved, you know, don't, so just remember that, I know it says it on the bottom of these forms, but just as a reminder, that is a thing. And then, when I was on the phone with local government services, I did ask the woman, she was an attorney, so about the salary, the midterm increases. She said, they have had that question so many times, and she said they will not touch that. There's just no clear-cut answer, so she said without, that the best you can do is get prosecutor's office to give you an answer on that, because otherwise, she said, don't do anything, cause.
I've actually got a presentation for you, but tonight's not the night.
Okay, no, I did wanna let you know that since I
Okay.
had her on the phone, I thought I would.
That one, we might have done for the same person, cause I got the same information.
With Denise?
Well, no,
Okay.
it wasn't Denise, that's not the name I know, so.
Okay, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know that's all.
Okay, second, roll call.
Did you
Should
move over
I
there?
make a motion
I
to
don't
adjourn?
know.
I'm sorry. I thought we got it. Make a motion to adjourn our meeting from, July 2020. Roll call.
Mr. Eastwood?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Christopher?
It is 9:33 PM. The meeting is adjourned.
On the streets, the water, you can extend the engineer.
The county would have to call it, be on the.
There is now guy gone, so that's okay.
They park their cars right out.
I've written to the it's on the Bible, you can't make them change.
I'd be embarrassed if I was a real bad list of that. And that's what they listed it for, yeah. Well, I gotta go do some of the math on the rest and do a payback on
Did you?
That's okay,
It must be awful small.
Yeah, one is so tiny, they gave up on it. And the stove in one. Yeah. On a Formica that lives on the because there wasn't room. So they don't
Rentals happen with the rental inspection?
Well, don't you remember when they started trying to
Probably were the ones.
He's not a permit, so this is.
Not a surprise.
Well, it's just that I find it so hard for the safety issue. No, we don't have one thing except tear down my hedge.
This one, yeah, okay, I didn't get a response, so I just.
I just got kicked off the other morning.
Whoa.
Because Charlie's that stop sign and roll right through.
Oh, I know.
But you know, it's they don't come up with.
Yeah, well, nobody responded, so I just wanted to make sure.
Keeping our township safe.
Yeah, I have it.